So we're going to start out by discussing some of the frequently made mistakes I've seen so far in submissions of assignment 2A. And we'll take a look at a couple different things. So people had some questions about how to do the get timings proxy method, which is in I think it's one of the APIs that's in the client side. So if you take a look here, you're supposed to keep these skeletons unchanged. Don't modify them. Don't add Spring or string route name here. Just keep it the way it was. String get timings open close paren. So revert it back to what it was before. And then down here, this is doing things incorrectly. You don't want to be trying to pass in route name. Instead, you want to go take a look at the symbolic constant for the timer service that's defined in the constants.java file and pass that in here. Why do we do things slightly differently for the timer proxy as opposed to the ones that are accessing the database microservice? The reason is, as we will see later, there's potential to have different services, different microservices that are implemented. There'll be a database microservice and a database EX microservice. And so we want to be able to pass those things in as parameters. But there's only one timer service, so there's no need to parameterize it with the get timings method itself. So that should help explain sort of why things are the way that they are. Down here, this code is missing a couple important things. I think these both have more or less the same problem. Be very, very careful when you write your specifications. Otherwise, there's going to be some problems here. You have to make sure that you put the separators between the names of things appropriately. And as you can see here, the separators haven't been added. So that will lead to a situation where your code won't actually be able to make calls that'll be satisfied by the gateway and the database service because it won't be addressed properly to get there. Down here, this method implementation, while clever and good, is probably too complicated. You can use one of the cool new Java features for downcasting like this. You can say, is the object an instance of movie? If so, call it other, and then check to see whether other's ID equals this ID. So that's just a little bit cleaner way of doing things. And likewise, there's no need to include the vector in the hash. So specifically, don't include the vector when you're doing the hash. The vector is very large and is not what you need in order to see if the movies have the same titles. And then finally, make sure when you specify your Spring Data API names for these methods that you use things that are actually part of the columns or the fields in the movies object. And title is not the right term. You'll have to see what the right term is. But your IDE will yell at you if you try to do this and say, hey, you can't do that because there's no title that's part of movies. And then also, some people have noticed this. I don't know why this happens. It's one of these mysteries like, why has Tom Cruise's character Maverick been a captain in the Navy for 30 years without getting promoted? That's one of life's great mysteries. This is one of life's great mysteries. Sometimes when you go to try to run the various microservices, you'll see that they have these funny little X's here, these little red X's. I don't know why that is, but what I typically do to solve that problem is to double-click on those things in the editor, the menu of microservices editor, and then oftentimes if you save it, it'll go and be fine, even though you didn't make any changes whatsoever. I don't know why that is. Another thing people notice too, if you take a look here, the one that says, please install this plugin if you face problems. You want to add in the multi-run plugin, which will make it possible for you to run all the things in one fell swoop. Having said that, however, be a little careful because sometimes multi-run is a bit flaky. So if you're having problems where stuff isn't starting up properly for the microservices, for your tests, for your integration test, just go ahead and start them manually. I know it's kind of a pain, but you can start the Eureka application first, followed by the gateway application, followed by the database application, followed by the timer application. I don't think it really matters whether the database application or the timer application go in any particular order, but make sure you start Eureka first. That's the most important one to start first, followed by gateway. So that's a walkthrough of what I've seen so far. I will post this video up later. I'm sure there'll be other questions. As you can see, this is a bit more complicated in terms of the pieces, the moving parts, than assignment 1. It's not really that much harder in some ways. It just got more moving parts. So make sure you're working diligently to get your solution in place by Friday when it's due. And also make sure you address these issues before you submit your solution, or you will not have your code reviewed.